Hey, listeners. So we're just going to have fun with the episode today. And Alissa and I are going to riff a little bit on the importance of curiosity. And curiosity is my superpower. It's been fueling my career for longer than I want to admit. So you can guess how old I am. Anyway, I was thinking about this scene from a movie that I enjoy called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The book is pretty awesome too. It's by Douglas Adams. And in the movie, there's this scene where, the characters in the movie, they asked Deep Thought, the supercomputer, what is the answer to life, the universe, and everything? And Deep Thought said, well, you're going to have to give me some time to think about this. And so they went away as Deep Thought was calculating for 1,000,000 years. And then they come back and everybody's there and there's so much excitement. They're like, okay, we're ready. What is the answer to life, the universe, and everything? And Deep Thought confidently states, the answer is 42. And I think that we sometimes get so intense in our pursuit for answers that we often don't step back to clarify the question. And we can waste a lot of time and resources in life solving the wrong problems for the wrong reasons. And so curiosity is such a powerful and important part of any innovation, transformation initiative, or even relationships. Curiosity can help you move beyond judgment, and curiosity opens the door to fruitful conversations. And so we're just going to play around with that topic of curiosity today. So I'm curious to see what happens. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Alissa, our host for the show. Alissa Bartlett, over to you.
Hey, friends. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Alissa Bartlett, a genuine, curious question asker myself. So we live in a world obsessed with finding answers. But what if the real challenge isn't getting answers? It's asking the right questions. Remember in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that Deb just recounted, when the supercomputer gives 42 as the answer to life, the universe, and everything, but no one knows what the actual question was? That's more real world than we would like to admit. In today's episode, we explore how curiosity can reshape how we lead, innovate, and solve problems. Let's dive in. With me today is Deborah Reuben, whom you may be intimately familiar with if you are a regular listener of our show. Deb is a recognized voice in digital transformation, innovation strategy, and human-centered leadership. Her new book lays out the TomorrowZone System, a discovery-driven framework built to help leaders navigate disruption without burning out their teams. Today, she's here to share why curiosity might be her most underused leadership tool. Welcome, Deb.
Thanks, Alissa. I'm glad to be back with you. It's fun to have these conversations. So I'm looking forward to just having a fun conversation again. And I've always loved your curiosity. It's, we actually met because of our curiosity when I was leading a blockchain meetup group for women in the Twin Cities area. You were part of that. And it was all a gathering of curious women who wanted to learn more about blockchain and crypto and other advancing technologies. So I'm excited that we get to dive into this today.
Me too. However, before we dive into curiosity, can you briefly introduce the 5 shifts of the TomorrowZone system and how they fit together?
So, I have been heads down in all of my, I'm doing scare quotes right now, free time, working on this book. And so the forthcoming book is called Enter the Tomorrow Zone, How to Inspire Breakthrough Innovation to Shape the Future. And in it, I talk about the 5 mindset shifts that are really vital to move innovation forward without burning out your team. It's about building buy-in from the start so that you can thrive through innovation and not create what we too often see as an anxiety-filled drama fest when it comes to innovation and digital transformation. Because when you think about where we're at in the world today, things are moving fast and technology is changing even faster. How do we keep up with that? We have got to get good at this. We can't be traumatizing people left and right as we're making these changes, causing, change fatigue, whiplash, all sort of things are happening to us. And so, how do we do it different? There's got to be a better way. And so, as I was thinking about that, it really inspired this book. And so the TomorrowZone system is 5 mindset shifts that help you to not only get momentum on innovation, but to actually sustain it. It becomes a habit and a daily practice. And the first shift is align. And that's about getting everybody going in the same direction for the same reason and understanding why. The next shift is imagine. And that's about getting together and really stretching your thinking about what's possible now, but also what's next. One of the ways that we do this at TomorrowZone is through our monthly trend scanning sessions, or like the trend scanning session we just did for ELFA's Innovation Lab in Denver recently. It's all about making time to step away from the day-to-day and get into a place where you're exploring new possibilities and new futures. And then the next shift is co-create. And that's about bringing others into the process of creating something new, whether it's a new design, a new process, a new plan, a strategy, a roadmap. It's important for collaboration and better ideas, but also it up-levels your buy-in because you're creating ownership. It's pretty hard to resist a plan that you were part of creating. And so co-create is a really important shift. The next mindset shift is all about empowering. It's not about slamming in a change, but how are you empowering people to be able to live into that change so that that change stands the test of time? And then the final shift is evolve, where we take all of those previous shifts and we multiply it and amplify and continue to sustain change long term. And that's where we get into scalability, because these mindset shifts work on an individual and personal level as a leader, on a team level, at a company level. And we're also seeing it happen at an industry level in the equipment finance space. And so that's what it's all about. I've been pretty heads down geeking out on this stuff. We're on our 3rd round reviewing the manuscript. So it's pretty fresh for me. And curiosity is a thread that is showing up throughout the entire manuscript. So I think it's a pretty appropriate time to have this conversation.
Absolutely. And I can just attest, as someone who has been on the TomorrowZone team for over a year now, almost 2 years.
It's got to be 2 years now.
Yeah, it's almost 2 years. I think February.
It might even be more. I don't know. Time is going so fast. I'm not that person who's awesome at like remembering anniversaries and birthdays. So like, no offense. That's where I need help, and I know it.
Yeah, it's something like 2 years. I can say that Deb really practices what she preaches, in case you were wondering. I mean, this is really how TomorrowZone shows up in the world. So, Deb, your book emphasizes curiosity across all 5 shifts. But why is curiosity so essential, especially in today's business environment?
Today we hear all this talk about innovation, and we have to continue to embrace technology. We hear a lot about digital transformation, and the big fear is people don't want to be left behind. And it's one thing to think that, you can go out and just buy the right software and it's going to solve all of your problems, but really, is that the truth? So much of these initiatives revolve around the human side of things. If, you can have the sexiest and best technology in the world, and if we don't get that human side right, we're not going to get the ROI out of it. And a lot of it comes down to curiosity. Curiosity has to show up from the start. I think that one of the challenges that I see, and it's kind of an anti-pattern for innovation in our space, and I think it goes beyond just the equipment finance industry. Actually, I've talked to leaders in other arenas who are dealing with the same challenges in digital transformation. You have got to understand the why. behind the thing from the start. And I was thinking about this earlier today because I remember back in the day, I would always hear leaders talk about begin with the end in mind, begin with the end in mind. And we do want to begin with the end in mind in terms of that vision that we're trying to achieve, that business objective that we're trying to achieve, the opportunity that we want to go after, or the problem that we want to solve. What is that bigger, better future? But we also need to bring people along in sharing and understanding of what is that bigger and better future that we want to achieve. And more importantly, why? Why do we want to achieve it? Why are we going on this journey in the first place? Because if we can't align on that from the start, it's going to be pretty hard once you get into the messy middle of the thing and it gets difficult and there's disagreements, there are doubts, there's, decision fatigue starts happening and all of these other things. If we don't have a solid foundation of a shared understanding of why we're moving forward, it's going to be hard to get through that together and still, be awesome to each other through it. And so, one of the first things that we recommend is making time to step back and get curious about why are we doing this? Where are the challenges and which challenges are most valuable to solve and in what timeline? And that's one way by dialing up your curiosity, you can really bring people along to be a part of understanding the vision and buying into the vision before you even kick off your initiative.
Yeah. And so in your experience, what's the difference between a team that leads with curiosity and one that jumps just straight into execution?
Well, there's a big difference. So it doesn't matter if you're a technology team or if you're a business team. I see this all the time. I've seen it throughout my career. Whenever things get tricky and projects start to go off the rail, the pattern that I'm usually finding is a team that has started with a preconceived solution rather than digging in to really understand the underlying problem to solve. Often when we're presented with a problem, it's symptomatic. And we can often find that the presenting problem isn't actually the real problem that needs to be solved. There's usually something that lies below the surface. And the only way you can get to that real problem to solve is through curiosity and through honest conversations. And so it's about really leaning into asking, okay, well, why is that going on? What does it mean for you? What's driving your urgency around this thing? Asking all sorts of different questions so that you can continually dig in to find out what the real problem is to solve. I think about a client that I was working with. It's so interesting. So we had been doing all of these work sessions together to reimagine a process. And this was for a national property developer. They were trying to figure out how do we lease up a new property? As soon as a property opens up, we want to get it leased up as fast as possible. So all of the apartments are rented. And, this used to take them, 2 months or more to get that done. How can we get it down to 30 days? And so we had to, use a lot of moonshot thinking and get really curious and creative. What's possible? What if we did it this way? What if our team looked like the Avengers? What if we modeled, what if we were like Amazon? What if this was like Uber? Just really getting out of the box in our thinking. And so they were getting used to brainstorming with me and coming up with new radical ideas. And so one Friday night, I remember they came to me and it was kind of after hours. I was surprised to hear from them so late. And they're like, it's really urgent. We need your help. Can you brainstorm with us? We need to figure out how to hire a whole bunch of people really fast so that we can increase our application flow to stay on pace with this lease up process. And I'm like, what? You think you need to hire a whole bunch of people? Okay. And so, I asked their permission. Well, you can make permission to ask you a whole bunch of questions. This is that we can really figure out together what's under the surface here. What's the real problem we need to solve? Yes. Because they were coming to me with a preconceived solution. And that's where a lot of people start. But, I took them through a process of leaning into curiosity. We just took, we took some time to do a simple process, this is a tool that, anybody can use. It comes from Lean Six Sigma world. I think it came from the founder of Toyota, actually, the 5 whys approach. And you don't have to ask why, because that can sound like an interrogation. There are a lot of different ways to ask why. But, I kept digging in. Okay, well, tell me what is it that makes you think that you need to hire a bunch of people? Because we're not getting a lot of applications and we should. And okay, so why do you think the applications aren't flowing in? Well, because, potential renters aren't filling in the applications. Well, I wonder what is it about the application process, that might be turning them off. We started digging in. In the end, we kept going through this process and really digging in and being open to the curiosity approach. And what we found was there was a single word throughout their website that was turning off potential renters. And once we fixed that, application flow started again the next day. And we avoided a very expensive assumed solution to the wrong problem and found the right problem to solve by leaning into curiosity. And so, not only can curiosity help you to solve the right problem, but it can save you a lot of heartache and extra cost and time, with people running in the wrong direction unnecessarily. And it really didn't take that much extra time for us to dig in and exercise our curiosity to figure out the right thing to do.
Just one simple change on a website. That's all it took.
Yeah. There was just one word that just happened to be. I mean, it doesn't matter what word it was. I mean, the point of the story is digging in and getting curious about what's really going on below the surface. And doing that with a cross-functional team can be tough. And that's why they came to me. They wanted a facilitator to help them through that conversation because they weren't able to get there themselves. That's how they ended up coming to this, assumed solution. And so, it's a superpower.
So let's talk about buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
How can curiosity shift the dynamics of people aligned and engaged in complex transformation?
I love this because I just heard from one of our clients today. So we're teaching them actually how to exercise this. And so, when it comes to buy-in, I really strongly believe that buy-in is not some bolt-on activity that you add on to the end of going off in your ivory tower, coming up with a strategic plan and then mandating it from on high. And because you presented it, bam, you've got buy-in. That's alignment theater. Buy-in comes from people coming along and being a part of the process until they can actually own their part in the process. And so the way that curiosity can shift the dynamics of buy-in and get people aligned with and excited about being a part of creating that new, better, more awesome future is by coming in and actually listening to them. So I was working with a technology team and they were working with a business team that was hesitant to take on an upgrade of a system, especially, if you've been through a digital transformation initiative, you may remember just how painful it was to get through that, and I can understand the hesitancy to ever do it again. But what if you approach it in a totally different way? What if you come together with that business team and go through a discovery process together? And together you explore and you look at and kind of lay out and map. And we do a lot of visual facilitation. So what if you map visually, like, where are the pain points across your business? And you listen to them tell you from their words, from their experience, from their context, where the pain points are in using your technology solution or the process that you might have been part of. And this is where you got to leave ego at the door and not be defensive and genuinely lean in with curiosity and listen. And so, I was talking to my client today who tried this with a business team, and they found that it actually radically changed their relationship with that business team because that business team felt listened to. It might have been the first time they were listened to about these issues. And because the tech team genuinely leaned in with curiosity to listen, they were able to come to it with empathy for the the business team's experience. And now both sides are ready to work together jointly to make that future happen. And the thing that was so exciting is it wasn't just, okay, we understand what the pain points are. We now have a much better approach to solving those, but they were able to surface potential pitfalls that would have later on become very crucial and critical surprises. They were able to surface those up front and be anticipatory and really, dig in even more with curiosity to find out, okay, here's something that we're seeing. Let's talk about this. And so it allowed them to have a level of conversation that they had never had before. And they left with a business team that's actually excited. They can't wait to start the project. That's buy-in. When they can't wait to start the project with you because of the level of conversation that you've been able to have, it's so different than coming at them with a presentation. Buy-in comes through that two-way conversation, deeply listening with genuine curiosity.
What a beautiful story. Just very human.
Yeah, it made my day hearing that.
Yeah.
What you're doing.
That's what we're all about. That's what we're all about, human side.
Yeah.
So just a final question here. For leaders listening who feel stuck in the noise of urgency, what's one small way they can bring more curiosity into their next conversation?
One of the big things that really helps with stuff like this, because this is a new behavior and a new habit, setting the intention before you go into the meeting or work session would be a really great place to start. Because once you prime your brain to look for ways to lean into curiosity and ask more questions, your brain is going to find what it's looking for. So that's one thing you can do. It's pretty simple. And then if you're going into that conversation in a frame of curiosity, the nice thing is that takes you out of judgment. And so you're actually starting on a different plane with your people. And so then the other thing that really helps, I do really believe in being prepared as you're going into work sessions and meetings, because as a business owner, I know the cost of every meeting that I'm in. And it's not just the cost of the resources that are in the meeting or the time that you're in the meeting, it's the opportunity cost of you not being somewhere else. And so those costs can add up pretty quick. And so, being prepared to go into those meetings in a curiosity frame can be really powerful, and having a set of questions that you can refer to so that you have a toolkit. It's almost like having arrows in your quiver, that you can kind of pull out and kind of shoot into the situation to open up new ways of understanding what's going on. There are different ways to ask why, for instance, instead of, why do you need it done by then? You could ask, what's behind the urgency to have it done by this date? And so even having a toolkit of questions that you can ask that can help you, lean into that curiosity frame can make a huge difference. And we have all sorts of toolkits around that at TomorrowZone as part of our, our consulting field guide. But the first step, I think, would be the intention to step back and just say, hey, I think it's really important for us to step back and really get clarity about what it is we're trying to do here and why. And then, open the door for questions.
Well, there you have it, folks. Watch for the book coming this fall. Remember, you don't have to have all the answers. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to ask a better question. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious and choose to make awesome happen.
Thanks for making awesome happen today, Alissa. Appreciate you.
I have chills.